BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions, and alright, let's talk about women in Beyblade Burst. So, this is gonna be a fun one. Please be respectful in the comments. Alright, let's rip off the band-aid. Burst might have the worst treatment for their female characters in a franchise where most of the women were just okay at best. And I say this out of all 4 generations. So, what's the main problem? Well, easy. There are barely any girls or female characters who actually participate in the sport. And even when they do, either they don't have a unique combo new to the generation and end up like a stock combo from last generation, actually have potential of stories regardless of their blading status, and it's just underexplored, or even if they get their own Beyblade, the way that they're written ends up robbing them of their agency. It's so bad that people actively have to look up what Beyblades they actually use to simulate battles in the toy line in real life, since most of them don't get any in the show, which is a shame because there's a lot of potential for a lot of these characters, and some of them I actually really enjoy. Hell, why do you guys think there's so many original character fanfictions and creations out there where the vast majority are women and young ladies? But why are we focusing on women? I'd give you a speech on art being a reflection of society, but I'm gonna get the bad faith actors in this video either way, so I'll just ask a few questions. Are men born with an inability to write women well? Because that's pretty sexist if you think about it. Are girls allowed to enjoy Beyblade? I think we all know what the answer is. What's wrong with having a show where the guys and girls both get to do things equally? Or trans or non-binary. Season 1 of X literally had a female character being told by other women she shouldn't Beyblade, despite the fact that when she did take her hobby seriously, she was able to help her boss and find people who actually cared about her enough to grow her following. But I'm a girl and I don't need representation. Okay, fair. But if a character has things about them that are cool and can be used to be fleshed them out, at the end of the day, shouldn't gender, not restrict the character's ability to be written well and have their own agency? I want to go by season and explain what the problem is. If you made it this far, type Ilia deserved better in the comments below. So, for Season 1, we got about 19 bladers, right? So let's focus on Nika. Burst has a fun trend of most of their female characters in the main cast being the relative of a blader with their own unique skills. And if you don't believe me, Nika is Volt's sister, Hani is Sasha's sister, Naru is Aiga's sister, Ichika is Fumiya's sister, and Hana is Basara's sister. The only exception is Season 5 because the only 2 ladies are Raika and the twins' mother, because Season 7's main co-protagonist is the younger sister of the main antagonist, which isn't a bad thing. I just think they're adorable and sweet. But going back to Nika, it was actually kind of funny of having those moments where she and Toko would have fun blading each other, or getting involved in Volt's wacky antics as the sane ones, or when they were actually scared a few times and acted their age. Though she got demoted in Season 2 with Toko, it was actually pretty cool they got to do a bit more in Season 3, now that they were old enough to attend Beigoma as elementary school students, with her becoming the Bay trainer. And this isn't inherently a problem, but up until some seasons of Burst and X, one issue that's always bugged me is that they never let the character who's supposed to be the Beyblade mechanic or trainer also be a blader. This was a problem for both male and female characters, because Kenny kind of could have done a little bit more. They didn't even let him be the 5th blader. And Madoka will never get a negative comment towards me. But Bull Borgin from Battle Beat 'em On went from one of the main fighters to the mechanic, instead of just letting him find that balance. With Burst, it's funny how they continued this trend in Season 2 with Ivan switching to a Bey trainer, but then after Season 3, we have protagonists making their own Beyblade. So I've seen people say Nika and Sasha should have had their own Beyblades, and honestly, I agree. Especially because by Season 3, Tokonatsu had become a blader, so the thought becomes, why didn't she when she used to Beyblade a lot as a child? Granted, I'm still glad she still gets involved in Shozetsu's plot to some degree, but I do agree with the people who were disappointed she never got her own unique Beyblade. Now, for Season 5 and Sparking, would I have preferred her and Tokonatsu be the protagonists of it? Now, I think this question is contentious because half the people say this generally want Toko and Nika to be protagonists fitting for a dual protagonist season, while the other half is saying this just to bash on Hikaru and Hyuga for existing, more so Hyuga. My take is this. Yes, I would love to see Nika and Tokonatsu as protagonists of their own season. If they were in Sparking, I would have preferred if they got their own Beyblades and were basically a team of protagonists with Hikaru and Hyuga. That way you have a team of new twins and old twins with ties to the legends taking on their idols together, with the Azashi brothers trying to save Lane, while the Aoi siblings tried to reach their brother, and their older fans would go really, really hard. Heck, a lot of people pointed out that Hasbro made a Beyblade called Ambush Nidhogg, and given the last name of a Beyblade tying with the first name of a protagonist rule almost made by most characters in Burst, that's the perfect Beyblade for Nika right there. Oh, right, I should talk about the moms. Chiharu Oe, whose first name was never said in the show. We love supportive parents. She's the first parent's mother in any Beyblade series to show up in the anime. And it's so cool she trains Vault at home to do chores that kills two birds with one stone. For season 2, I actually think God and Evolution did a great job with this season and proved you could be a supportive female blader and character where you could get developments. Christina being the manager of BC Soul is pretty cool for a story arc because she does have to grow. Chris's main problem was that she was too dependent on Free for far too long, which caused a breakdown in the team, and she had to do a better job of stopping the toxicity within the group, since half of her veteran bladers were extremely pessimistic and cynical to the newcomers out of envy and jealousy. Stan sucks, but thanks to his lies, Christina had the choice to give Vault and Rentaro to prove themselves, and with Trad occasionally making good points, it was her chance to prove to him that she could run BC Soul, especially once he left, to prove that she could do it without him. I know people were mad about her believing Stan, but remember, we didn't see her perspective. We didn't get her perspective because she wasn't there. And after Trad left, she had to put in work to make her team be ready for success, including trusting Raul to get Raul back and quelling the tensions between them. Like, she treats the members of her team more fairly than some of them treat each other in the beginning. And that part of her kindness is one of the strongest aspects of her character, because without her, Free would have broken himself and his career in order to try and beat Vault. And yet, she didn't care. Victory meant nothing if the friend that she was so closely tied to destroyed himself. Yeah, she is the manager, so she's not really getting involved with the technical and performance aspects, but she's the one organizing all of it so everyone could be the best that they can be on the team, including trusting her more empathetic and rational members like Sasha. The writers prove that regardless of if you are a supporting character or not, you can still have your moments to shine. Okay, now for the female blader of the season. Sasha was probably the best treated burst female blader until season 6, and even then you can make an argument she was handled better in some degree. The fact she's the kindest member of BC Soul's original squad in a team where half of them were outright jerks or bystanders to the infighting was a breath of fresh air, and even when she's angry, she does it out of care for the team. Hell, she was the only other person who didn't fault Vault for Stan's lie, challenged Vault to prove his dedication to the club, and bowed out. Heck, she even beat Vault about 11 episodes later, and is the only female blader who beat a protagonist with older parts in a 1v1. Plus, she was the only one who had the balls to call out Free for leaving the team early on. Yes, Free had good intentions, but one of Free's character flaws is that he doesn't explain himself to anyone and expects him to behave like he did. And to be honest, she had a point of him just waltzing back in since his team lost and then he lost to Louis. Yeah, she lost that fight, but even then she got him willing to help her improve her skills and do better again to the point where she got his respect. Her record is 2 wins and 4 losses, but losing to Vault, Free, and Raul's training ain't a bad record. Heck, her other win was against the second match with Royals, where even Cisco couldn't get a win by switching up her style. Remember how I said people wanted Sasha to have her own Beyblade? Yeah, when you look at Beyblade fanfics, a large number give Sasha her own unique Beyblade, which I'm actually impressed by. She actually used a stamina combo of Gigant Gaia. Given Go had struggles with that Beyblade, it actually would have been very cool to have 1 or 2 battles to see it, especially since until season 6, Beyblade Burst never let 2 Beyblades with similar avatars be treated as special, especially since Rashad's Valkyrie never had their own avatar. Still, Sasha's great, she's a fan favorite for a reason, but I also agree with the majority that she should have had her own Beyblade. As for Ange and Honey, respect chefs, and Honey's adorable. For season 3, there's really not that much to say. Naru's fine. It's actually funny she was more of a Beyblade fan than Iga was. It's cute seeing both of them care for the animals in the school's petting zoo. And it's crazy she actually traveled all the way from her farm to follow him, and he didn't even notice until a certain point. On the parent side, I do like Taiga and Kana's dynamic. Taiga's status as a Bey trainer means he's got valid concerns about Iga's blading leading him down a dark path, while you have Kana being supportive of Iga following his new dream, but just making sure Naru's there with him. As for Kumita, she's fine. Okay, I do like her being a slacker who barely puts in the effort except for her friends, and I actually felt so bad she tried to get Suo to work with Renjiro for their tag match, and he just blew her off. Their loss was entirely karma. Fun supportive character, but that's really all I can say. For season 4, this is where the wasted potential part really takes form, to the point I might actually have to split this up into 2 videos. Ichika and Fumiya I have to talk about together because both have the same problem, their lack of focus. I like how they were both inspired by Free, with Fumiya taking up Beyblading to impress her only to end up with his ego making him for a team to steal almost all of Victory's members and Ichika joining said team, only for all of Fumiya's teammates to abandon them. The problem is Fumiya disappears from the plot like every 10 episodes, and when the Spark Wings abandon them for Hell, he doesn't participate in the battle against Hell even though his team is involved. Yes, Drum and Delta beating Arthur in Arc 3 makes sense and is able to help him get back his former members, but I think Ichika should have convinced Fumiya to disband Spark Wings and join Victories because they were just quick to drop him, while Drum and Amane have proven that they have their friends and rivals' backs, including him. Even if you don't think Ichika needed to become a main blader, though that would have allowed her to actually challenge her brother for a change, the Kendo siblings reuniting on the same team and letting Fumiya actually join Victories to fight for someone else from Hell would actually feel like they contributed more to the story. The reason I'm briefly talking about Gwen is that there are rumors that Gwen was supposed to be a girl, like what happened with TT and Metal fight, but Hiro Morita's editors shut that down, allegedly. I don't know how true that take is, but truth be told, if Gwen was a girl, nothing would change. Hell, he already has female actresses on both sides of the hemisphere anyway, so I don't see a problem if he was. Besides, it's not like we're gonna have a female main antagonist in the future. Oh. Moving on to season 5, yeah, the only female character I can talk about is Rika, or Reina in the dub. And I think I made my point clear. Like, there were no female bladers until after this season ended either. And God proved you can have women in the story. If you aren't going to let them do anything, why involve them in the story at all? As for Rika, she's the token girl of the Comets, or Bombers in the original. And I'm actually going to take a page out of Pokemon for this one. So if you watch Pokemon Black and White, you have Trip, who I don't hate, and if you want me to make a video on him just being wasted potential, also let me know in the comments. But Trip used his photography not to just remember his wins and losses, but in the episode where he and Ash had his third battle, Trip had captured an image of Oshawott revealing he closes his eyes when doing Aqua Jet because he struggles with seeing underwater, which later helped Ash train him to overcome that. So my fix would be to give that to Laika. During battles, have her take pictures and give the brothers tips and angles based on what she finds. This may be far-fetched, but back in Season 4, Drum and Dragon noticed Blind's Bahamut had a weakness and that the Perfect Circle had an opening which they timed to exploit. And who better to notice something like that than the camera girl in the group? It actually helped both brothers because Hikaru's main issue is that his confidence. So having someone else on his team that could help contribute to his strategies would be an asset. And Hyuga definitely needs to practice the definition of analysis. As I showed with Chris, you don't need to be participating in the sport to be a good character. But if you're going to write a female character, you might as well just have her be involved in some way or form. I'm giving valid criticisms while also offering solutions. Hell, Reika's Japanese name means camera lens and why, so use that. Season 6 is where I really get disappointed. But before that, let's talk about Hannah. And she was alright. Actually, like how she had a stronger sense of adventure and enthusiasm compared to her more cynical brother, messing with Ranzo's lack of Japanese, and the fact she's actually supported Belle while questioning her brother when he had joined Rashad's team. But let's get to the biggest offender on this list, Ilia. Ilia Mao was on the path to being one of my favorite female Beyblade characters. She's extremely strategic, calculating, actually has a fun personality, and I like her competitive nature. A lot of people love her, and even before my disappointment, I still think some of the criticism against her was pretty dumb and still is. I've seen people say she doesn't win battles fairly because she gets in her opponent's head and tries to cheat because of her manipulating Ranzo. And I find that really hypocritical when characters like Wakia, Dinah, Louie, Cisco, and Aoki would try to get under their opponent's skin. Like, Ranzo didn't have to agree. And she played her debut fight pretty well, using Ranzo to weaken Basara so she could take him, then use Belle and Rashad's tunnel vision for their rivalry to take them both out at the same time. People have also taken issue with her using a Hasbro Beyblade, and this time I'm blaming Moriata and Takara Tomy for this one. The parent company didn't even bother to make her own Beyblade, and Moriata didn't even draw her battling in the manga. He left it to the anime to decide that. Like, props to him for making the design at least, but when people tell me Ilia is good in the manga just because her giving insight onto her leaving Rashad for getting too serious on blading is just that. A backstory. There's no story of what she did afterwards. Or, actually her being involved in the current story past the flashbacks. Plus, in the first half of the anime, she's doing really well. After the battle royale, she comes really close to beating Louis until he busts out Guilty Smash. and that had the stakes for a rematch in the future. But in the second half of the series, she barely does anything. People have argued Ilia telling Rashad to move on from Valkyrie robbed Rashad of agency, even though he was doing things even Vault wasn't okay with and destroyed Bell's Beyblade when he didn't need to. I think him debuting Greatest Raphael against Bell is a fair criticism, but her motivating Rashad to surpass Vault and challenge him is fine. But during the Clash of Kings arc, all Ilia does is just be double windmill fodder with Basra, or acting as a shield for Rashad. The opening hyped up all three of them being tough to beat, and this was the perfect time to learn more about her, what she did before leaving Rashad, and what it was like for her being on her own. She's actually not that different from Hikaru in the Metal Saga in that regard. The problem is that we don't get that. Heck, she's the only member of Nexus and Censor that doesn't even get a win in the tournament. Rashad's the one who did most of the work. Then she loses to Rashad and Phenomenal, loses and never blades again. Meanwhile, Bell and Basra conclude their rivalry. Ronzo's still involved by virtue of just being there. And Val and Shu are involved in some degree. Meanwhile, she's just going back to being Rashad's partner. Don't get me wrong, Ilia's great, but I wish she could have had better closure. And here are some ideas. Actually have her confront Rashad about how his behavior is going overboard. An idea that I had is that the last episodes could have been the new generation team going up against the Legends, where she could have had a revenge match against Louis, or do it pre-did from next season and have her try to beat Rashad near the end. And since he was so focused on being the best, well, she had to put in all this work and helps him resonate with Raphael. I don't hate Ilia, but they wasted her potential hard. For Season 7, there's pre-Foresight, and finally, we end Beyblade's Burst's female characters on a highlight. Heck, she's the co-protagonist of Season 7, and you could make the argument she's the main focus as a leading lady. Plus, she actually has a great story. She starts off seemingly strong, but slowly has her conflicted over her ability to blade without wearing her mask, with Kensuke giving her tips on her self-worth. Then, as she starts to bond with Bell and the rest of the legendary bladers, Pax starts enforcing the fact that he's using her as a tool, and during the Iga arc, she suddenly starts realizing this after Iga defends her from Pax. And as Pax abandons her, she goes from relying on Pax to making the other Pandora to forming Flame Pandora as the balanced and strongest one, actually defeating characters she struggled with in the past like Kit and Drum, and going toe-to-toe to Volts. The only problem is that the final battle being Pax versus Bell instead of Pre versus Pax didn't happen. Granted, I would have had them both fight Pax at the end, and even then you could make the argument that without Pre meeting Bell in the first place, she wouldn't even have gone on the journey to become a better blader in the process, since in the end, she was able to save her brother and their relationship. And no, I'm not going to knock Hasbro for having their Beyblade hobby again. If Japan cared, they would have been the ones who made it. Anyway, conclusion time. I feel like I said a lot and yet very little at the same time, but yeah, Burst could have handled the female characters a lot better. If you disagree, or agree, or want me to make a future video fleshing out some of these themes even more, heck, I have no idea how long this video is going to be already. Please just let me know. Hope you enjoyed, and BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions signing off.